Hey, what's going on, guys? Brian Kelly here from Zombie Guitar. Here in today's video, I want to teach you how to learn songs by ear without needing a guitar in your hand or without needing to sit down at a piano or anything like that. You just listen to the song and you learn it by ear. So this is a very, very learnable skill. Anyone can do it, and it is not to be confused with perfect pitch. So before getting into the process, let me first explain the difference between perfect pitch and relative pitch. So if you had perfect pitch, then someone would be able to sit down at a piano, play any chord, say a D major chord, for example. They would sit down at the piano and play a D major chord, and you could listen to it and identify and say, that's a D major chord. If you could do that, you have perfect pitch. If, on the other hand, you listen to the person play that D major chord and you can identify that's a major chord, but you don't know if it's a D major chord or if it's a C major chord or if it's a B flat major chord, you just know it's a major chord, then that's relative pitch. So relative pitch is a learnable skill, whereas perfect pitch is just, according to the research, it's just something that you have to be born with. Now, I didn't do all the research on the perfect pitch thing. I just know that I don't have perfect pitch, and I know that you don't need to have perfect pitch in order to apply the stuff that we're going to be talking about here today. You just need to develop your relative pitch. All right, so let's talk about the goal of what we're trying to do. So we're trying to listen to music, and then you're just trying to identify the chord progression. But we're not trying to identify the exact specific chords. So we don't care if it's like a C major moving to an A minor, moving to an F major, moving to a G major. We just care about it being a 1, 6, 4, 5 progression. Okay, so let me just quickly play you an example of a 1, 6, 4, 5 progression in a couple different keys so you can kind of hear how it's the same chord progression, it's just different keys. Let me show you. So here's the progression. Let's try that in a different key. Let's try it in another key. So I just played the same exact chord progression 3 different times in 3 different keys, but it doesn't matter what key it is. It's just the fact that it's a 1, 6, 4, 5 chord progression. That's what we're listening for here. All right, so let's talk about this assigning numbers thing. So the song is most likely going to be written in a key. If it's not written in a key, then you're probably listening to jazz, and you probably are well beyond what we're talking about here in this video. This refers to key-based music, which is most of the stuff that you hear on the radio, rock, pop, metal, blues, country, stuff that's in a key. All right, so in a key there's 7 chords, so you assign a number 1 through 7 to each of the 7 chords. So it doesn't matter what key we're in, so we don't even need to have chords listed here. We just have chords 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So if a song is written in a key and the tonal center of the song is the first chord, it's considered to be written in a major key. If the song is written in the tonal center of the key is the 6th chord, it's considered to be written in a minor key. Now, of course, any of these 7 chords could potentially be the tonal center of the key, and that's perfectly fine, and that's actually what modal chord progressions are. Technically, any chord progression is a modal chord progression, but for the purpose of keeping things simple for this video, let's just assume that most of the stuff that you're listening to and trying to figure out by ear is going to either have the first chord as its tonal center within the key or the 6th chord as its tonal center within the key. All right, so if you don't know what I mean by this tonal center thing, typically the first chord of the song or the last chord of the song is going to be the tonal center chord. That's not going to be always the case, but more often than not, you're going to find that's the case. Just a quick example. Let me just quickly play the Let It Be by the Beatles progression, and I'll point out what the tonal center is. All right, so in that example right there, that used 4 chords, and I think most people would agree that that final chord that I just played right there, that sounded like a good chord to end on. That sounded like home. That's tonal center for you. All right, so let's now talk about the process of learning songs by ear. So a song's in a key. a key consists of 7 chords. Your objective is to listen to the song and label each of the chords within the progression just by listening to it. So the first thing to understand is that we're only really concerned about the first 6 chords, that 7th chord, that diminished chord. Not that it's not used, it's just that the majority of the songs that you're listening to are mostly going to consist of major chords and minor chords. So just to keep things simple for this video, we're just going to worry about the first 6 chords. So what I do is I have these little, they're not called mnemonic devices, I don't even know what you would call them, but they're just things in my head that I think of that always let me know the sound of a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6 chord. So let's knock out the 4, 5, and 6 chord right away. The way I do that, Stairway to Heaven. The ending of Stairway to Heaven is a 6, 5, 4 progression. Okay, if it's in the key of A minor and you want to label these chords and you want to call the A minor chord the 1 chord and then you want to rearrange the numbering of the other 2 chords, knock yourself out. It doesn't matter. Whatever numbering system you want to use, it's totally fine. I just like to label everything from the perspective as if it was in a major key, even if the song is technically written in a minor key. So, Stairway to Heaven, the end chord progression, it sounds like this. Alright, so that's the sound of the 6 chord, that's the sound of the 5 chord, that's the sound of the 4 chord. Now that doesn't mean that every time an A minor chord occurs in a song that it's going to be a 6 chord. An A minor chord could be a 2 chord in a song. An A minor chord could be a 3 chord in a song. The thing to understand here is that when you have a minor chord followed by a major chord, which is a whole step lower than it, followed by another major chord that's a whole step lower than it, which produces this very recognizable sound, that's 6, 5, 4. So Stairway to Heaven is in the key of A minor, which is the same key signature as C major, which means that the key of A minor and the key of C major share all the same chords as each other. And if we're numbering from the major perspective, I'm assigning a 6, a 5, and a 4 to these chords. So that's in that key. But if I have a 6, 5, 4 chord progression in another key, let's say I'm in the key of B minor. So that was in a different key now, but it still has the same sounds. Or what if I'm in the key of E minor? So hear that, remember it, which you probably already do because you've heard Stairway to Heaven 9 million times in your lifetime, just like everyone else has. So that's the sound of a 6, 5, 4. So if you can listen to a song and you can, number one, identify this is a song that's written in a minor key, and you can identify the tonal center of that minor key song just by listening to it, you can identify which chord is home. Therefore, you have successfully labeled that chord as the 6 chord. Well, in your mind, you have the sound of a 6. So let's say the song is in the key of, I don't know, F sharp minor. Be prepared for some crappy singing. Ah. All right, so that's the sound of my 6 chord. So now I just have to play Stairway to Heaven in my mind based on that. Ah, ah, ah. All right, so I have the sound of 6, I have the sound of 5, I have the sound of 4 in my mind just by referencing the sound of Stairway to Heaven. So that's 4, 5, and 6 for you. So the second reference is what you're going to use to provide you with the sound in your mind for what the 1 chord sounds like and for what the 6 chord sounds like. So what I use for this one is go to sleep, whatever that lullaby is. It doesn't matter what key it's in. Maybe you heard that before. It doesn't matter if it's in that key. It doesn't matter if it's in this key. Doesn't matter if it's in this key. So that's your second reference point. So this third reference is going to be what we use to allow us to hear what the 2 and the 3 chord sounds like without actually hearing the 2 or the 3 chord being played. All you need to know is the sound of the major scale. So if you're listening to a song and it's in a major key context, and it doesn't matter what key it is, it doesn't matter what the chords are, but you've said, oh, that's a happier sounding chord progression, it's in a major key context, you're able to identify what the tonal center is, you're like, oh, there it is, that's the tonal center. That's the 1 chord. So if you know what the sound of the 1 chord is, let's say that, for example, the song's in D major and you've identified this is your 1 chord. So you just have to know your major scale. Do, re, mi. So do is 1, re is 2, mi is 3. So do, re, mi. That's it. Those are the 3 references. So Stairway to Heaven gives you your 4, 5, and 6. The Go to Sleep Lullaby song gives you your 1 and 6 relationship. And then your major scale will be what you use to find 2 and 3. All right, so the first example is going to be Don't Cry by Guns N' Roses, and that goes like this. All right, so I started playing it how the song actually goes, which is kind of individually picked notes, but hopefully you're able to hear that those individually picked notes are all representative of a chord. So not all songs are just going to consist of just chords being strummed. A lot of times the chords are going to, be played as individual notes, or there's going to be like guitar fills and all kinds of cool stuff going on, all kinds of riffs and stuff. But usually the song has some sort of chord progression happening, even if it's like super riffy and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Usually there's a chord progression happening, and that's what we're trying to identify here. So here's a clear case of that. It's not just strummed chords, but it still represents 4 chords. 1 chord, 2 chords, 3 chords, 4 chords. All right, so you're trying to identify the chord progression. So first step is we're just going to assume that this first chord is the tonal center. All right, I said usually it's the first chord or the last chord that's the tonal center. So we have to start somewhere, so we're going to just make that assumption. So this is going to be our tonal center chord. So hopefully you can hear that that's a minor chord as opposed to a major chord. Minor, major. All right, so hearing that that's a minor chord as opposed to a major chord, that's kind of like the prerequisite to this. So make sure you can tell the difference between minor chords and major chords. Assuming that you can do that, assuming that you've identified, okay, this is our tonal center chord. I don't know it's an A minor chord, but I know that that's the tonal center, and I know that that's a minor chord. So I'm going to apply the number 6 to that chord. All right, so 6. So if I know what 6 is, I can pretty easily find 1. Go to sleep, go sleep. Let's figure out 4, 5, and 6 based on the Stairway to Heaven thing. So dun 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 dun. Okay, so I know what the sound of 6, I know what the sound of 5, I know what the sound of 4. Go sleep. All right, so I have the sound of 6 and 1. And then there's only one more chord to figure out in this song, and that would be the second chord. All right, so if I know the sound of 6, go sleep. Sleep is 1, right? So do, re, mi, do, re. Okay, it's a 2 chord. You see how I'm doing this? So if this is 6, this is tonal center. And then I figured out this one based on figuring out do, re. I figured out that this was 5 already based on the Stairway to Heaven thing. So that's 5. And I figured out that this is 1 based on the go to sleep thing. Go sleep. So 6, 2, 5, 1. All right, so here's another song. This is Hey Soul Sister by Train. All right, so another 4-chord chord progression. We can use our mental reference points to identify these chords and to try and figure out what each number is. So let's do that now. So assuming that this is the tonal center, assuming that you've identified that this was in fact the tonal center chord, all right, and you've identified that that is major tonal center as opposed to minor tonal center, therefore this chord gets assigned the number 1. Now we can do our mental references to find everything else. So let's find 6 first. So we have the sound of 1. Sleep, go to sleep, go. I already know what 6 sounds like. Go. Ooh, there it is. No matter how crappy my voice was and how shaky it was, it still got me to where I needed to be. All right, so if I know what go is, that's the 6th chord. I can then play Stairway to Heaven in my mind to hear 6, 5, and 4. Go, dan 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 dan. So I know what 6, I know what 1, I know what 5, and I know what 4 sound like. And that's all the chords that are actually being used in this song, right? So 1, 5, 6, 4. Now, if you're just starting to do this, it may take you some practice. You know, you're not going to be able to just figure this stuff out like first try. Maybe you will. I don't know. But you just got to keep doing it. You know, the more you do this, the easier it's going to get. And keep doing it for a few years, you're just going to be able to listen to a song and be like, oh, that's a 1, 6, 2, 5 progression, or oh, that's a 4, whatever. You're just going to be able to figure this stuff out like super, super quick. And this is exactly how I do it. All right, so I'm going to give you one more example here, and this is going to be the song Santeria. So this goes like this. All right, so first step, identify the tonal center. I think you can agree that it's this chord. All right, so know if that's major versus minor. If you can't differentiate between major versus minor, make sure you can do that first, then move on to the stuff that we're talking about here. So that's a major chord. That's the tonal center. We're saying that's the tonal center. So therefore, that chord gets a 1. All right, so now we can just figure out, you know, we can use Stairway to Heaven, we can use the Go to Sleep thing, or we can use the Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do thing. So let's start out with the Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do thing. So Do, Re, Mi. So I know what 2 and 3 sound like, so let's see if any of those chords are 2 and 3. Do, Re. This is the next chord. Re, Do, Re. No, it's not Re. Do, Re, Mi. Mi. There it is. It's Mi. So I know what Do is. I know what 1 is. Do, Re, Mi. All right, so that's a 3 chord. Keep in mind this chord's being made major right now. Diatonically in the key, it should be a minor chord. This is a very common thing to do. I actually made a whole video about this. It's called My Favorite Chord. It's when you take a minor 3 chord and make it into a major 3 chord. So this is technically an out of key chord, but this is very, very common. You're going to come across this a lot. If the 3 chord in the song remains minor, if it remains the diatonic minor chord, it sounds like this. But in this case, it's made major, and it's very, very common to make that slight alteration to a 3 chord. All right, so let's try and figure out the next chord then. So we have this. All right, so what's that chord? So we know what our 1 sounds like. So that's 1. So that represents, if we're doing the Go to Sleep thing, that would be sleep. Sleep, go to sleep, go. So maybe this chord is go. Go, sleep, go, sleep. All right, so that therefore is the 6th chord. All right, so we have a 1, we have a major 3, we have a 6. So what do we do when we have a 6th chord? Stairway to Heaven. Dan 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 dan. 5 chord. See how this is working? 1, major 3, 6, 5. Do this for a bunch of songs, do this over and over and over, and you're going to get good at it. So this is exactly how I would learn songs on my way to band practice when I was still playing in a cover band. So I would have an agenda, I would have like 3 songs or something that I was supposed to have learned by Wednesday. It was Wednesday, I slacked off during the week, I didn't learn my 3 songs, but good thing I had a 15-minute car ride, because on my 15-minute car ride, I would listen to the 3 songs. I would go through this process that I'm explained here in this video. listen to the first song, be like, oh, that's 6, 2, 5. Cool, got it. Next song. All right, that's 1, 5, 6, 4. Cool, got it. Next song. And then by the time I got to band practice, I already knew the chord progressions of each of the 3 songs. I would then grab my guitar and I would just dial in the final piece of the puzzle, just figuring out the specific key that it was in. But the hard part had already been done by figuring out the chord progressions. And then if there's any like little riffs or anything, or little solos or leads or something like that, I would kind of fill the rest of that stuff in. I can't get into all of that stuff in this video. I can definitely make a follow-up video about this stuff. Point being, just identifying the chord progression is, I don't know, 87.2% of the battle. It's a big part of the battle. So that is how you figure out songs by ear without needing a guitar in your hand or without needing to sit down at a piano. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Thank you for watching. See you next time.